Hi, this is Melissa with Sew Yours Patterns. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make my latest sewing pattern, the Charlotte shoulder bag. Look at that beautiful detail down the gusset with all of those rivets. I've added purse feet to the base. The back of the bag features a zipper overlay with a zipper pocket. Right there. The flap closure is secured with a magnetic snap, but you can certainly go ahead and do a turn or twist lock here on the flap itself. I didn't have any gold ones, which is what I wanted to do originally. The inside of the bag here has another zipper pocket with a zipper overlay. And the best thing about this bag is the divider zipper pocket right here. So that way you can kind of separate all your items and have 3 compartments. 2 on either side of the bag, and then the zipper pocket itself. In this particular bag, I didn't use any stabilizer on the zipper pocket, but I have written into the pattern to include some stabilizer to give that a little bit more structure, and we will be doing that in the video today. In total, you're going to need 22 rivets on this bag, 7 down each side. 2 on each handle, 2 on each of these zipper overlays. You'll need your magnetic snap or whatever type of closure you're going to use for the flap itself. You're going to need 3 zippers in total. You're going to do 2 zippers that are 10-inch and 1 12-inch zipper. You can also use zipper tape as well. I've included measurements for how you're going to go ahead and cut down that zipper tape in the pattern. I've also used some strap ends right here as well. Those are optional. You can certainly go ahead and fold in your raw ends if you'd like. We've also done some rectangle rings here to attach the strap. You can also do some O-rings or D-rings as well if you choose. Let's go ahead and talk about all of the pattern pieces that make up this bag. We'll go ahead and start with the flap, and then we'll talk about the front exterior here. So here is the flap pieces. All of the cotton pieces have SF 101 ironed to the back of them. So this is my center flap panel. And this here is my side flap panels. Vinyl and or leather does not need any SF 101 on them because they already are sturdy on their own. These 2 pieces are mirrored, so you want to make sure you mirror them. I know I'm kind of guilty myself cutting the pattern pieces, and I forget to mirror them almost every time, but you do need to mirror them. My patterns also include these little tabs right here to go ahead and keep all of your cut pieces nice and organized. So all of my patterns have that. Here is the pieces for the front exterior. We have our center panel right here and our front side panels, again mirrored right there. The flap is also going to have the back piece, that's the flap lining. So right here, this piece right here. The flap is also going to have a piece of Decauville heavy in it. That way it gives it a little bit more structure. The bottom of the bag is going to have another piece of Decauville heavy as well to give it some more structure. I've got 2 zipper overlays. 1 for the exterior back pocket and 1 for the lining pocket. I've also included zipper facing instructions as well in the pattern in the event that you're not using vinyl and you're using cotton instead. So you can certainly go ahead and just do the zipper facing method or whatever zipper pocket method that you like to use. I've got 2 zipper ends here. This is going to be used for the zipper divider pocket. Here I have my strap. I believe the pattern calls for 36 inches for the strap. You can certainly shorten that or lengthen it, whatever you prefer. You could also do a adjustable crossbody strap as well. For me, I have shortened it by a couple of inches because I'm only 4'11". I thought that this was a good length for me. So that is my strap piece. Here is my decorative strap anchor piece. So that is the piece that's going right down here, down the center of the gusset, where the rivets are going to be secured to. And here is my exterior gusset piece. And I am using, for my stabilizer, So-Fuse Plus. You could use Decovil Light. You can also go with foam as well. I have included pattern pieces for the stabilizer in there for the divider pocket, the flap, and I believe for the exterior of the bag as well. Here is my lining gusset. This is the exterior back piece of the bag with the So-Fuse Plus on the back. For the inside of the bag, the lining, I've got 4 pieces of the divider zipper pocket. 2 of them are going to have the stabilizer on it, so if you're using So-Fuse Plus or if you're using Decovil Light, you're going to go ahead and put that on 2 of the pieces. And then the other 2 pieces just have the SF101. They all have SF101, but just 2 of them are only going to have SF101. You can also do like I did and use the same fabric for all pieces, or you can go ahead and the ones that are going to be on the inside of the zipper pocket, you can have those different than the outside. I've got 2 zipper pockets here. One is going to be for the exterior back of the bag and the other for the lining. And these are my lining panels, so front and back lining panels. And then I also have an additional piece of the So-Fuse Plus that's going to be secured to this front exterior panel once I get that constructed. So that pretty much sums up all of the pieces that make up this bag. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it and start sewing it. I can't wait to see the bags that you guys make whenever you purchase the pattern. Again, it's available for purchase on my website at sewyourspatterns.com. Let's go ahead and get right on into it. We're going to begin by making our shoulder strap. I have already made mine right here, but I will show you an example of what you'll be doing. Take your shoulder strap piece, draw a center line, fold in your raw edges to meet that center line. When you're using cork or vinyl, you'll want to apply a piece of double-sided tape down the left and the right side of the line that you've drawn. Then fold those edges in, and you're going to fold it in again in half as well to encase all of those raw edges. Then what you want to do is you're going to go ahead and sew with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down the left and the right side of the strap. You're going to start with that open edge first and then do the opposite side. When you're working with cotton, you don't need double-sided tape. You can simply just press the strap with the iron. And this is what it's going to look like once you've done the top stitching. Alright, we're going to begin by constructing the exterior front panel, which is right here on the bag. I've already began by sewing one of the side panels to the center panel as shown here, as well as done the 3 rows of top stitching. We're going to go ahead now and do the other side by lining up the straight edge and clipping it into place. What we're going to do is we will be sewing this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I apologize that I'm not speeding up the next few clips. My video editor is glitching and not allowing me to increase the speed. So feel free to go ahead and just jump ahead a couple of seconds to get through the straight stitching here. Alright, this is what it's looking like, and here is the back side. You want to make sure that you're pressing your seam allowances to the outer side of the bag, so that way we can top stitch the front appropriately. So my vinyl is a little bit thick here, so I'm going to have to kind of work with it and get it folded over. And the first row of stitches that we're going to be top stitching at is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead and sew now at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm lining up my presser foot and using that as a guide for the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, since that's the way that my presser foot works. You'll want to go ahead and measure your presser foot in relation to your needle to see what the spacing is. But I'm going to go ahead and sew that right now with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. It's very important to take your time top stitching on this bag, as we are using a contrasting thread. Your stitches are definitely going to show up on this bag, so if you're not making straight stitches, you're going to see everything. If you're not comfortable with your top stitching skills, you may want to go ahead and just stick to doing 1 row of top stitching instead of all 3 rows. Alright, this is what it's looking like. There is our seam a 1/4 of an inch away from the edge there. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip and do the 3rd row of stitching next. That is because the placement of the stitches is 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, and another 1/8 of an inch. So if I've done my first row of stitching at a 1/4 of an inch using my presser foot as a guide, I'm going to go ahead and line up my presser foot again with these row of stitches that I've just sewn and create that 3rd line of stitching, which is going to be a 1/4 of an inch away from the one I just sewed. Alright, there's our 1st and our 3rd row of stitching. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my needle right in the center of the 2 rows of stitching that I just created, which is going to give that 1/8 of an inch seam allowance between the 2. I'm just going to be eyeballing it as I'm going down the center of the 2 rows there. Our 3 rows of top stitching are at a 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, and another 1/8 of an inch, going from the center outwards. Now it's time to construct our flap piece, just like we did the exterior front piece, placing right sides together and clipping in place. We're going to sew down the straight edge again with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, lay it open, and top stitch the 3 rows. You want to again make sure that you're taking time doing your top stitching so that everything matches up nicely. I'll go ahead and do this piece now, and I'll come back in a moment to show you the completed flap and the next. I've completed sewing my front exterior flap, and I have my exterior flap back, I should say my flap lining. I've gone ahead and ironed on the Decaville heavy to the back of that, since that's my cotton piece. You're going to put right sides together and clip in place. You want to sew with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all along the sides and the bottom of the flap. So right here, you're going to sew around here. Make sure you take your time going around the curves. Alright, once you get that sewn, you want to cut down your seam allowances to a 1/4 of an inch. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll turn it right side out. Okay, I've turned my flap right side out, and I've top stitched around the bottom 3 edges here at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now it's time to go ahead and insert our magnetic snap if we're going to do that. I like to do this after top stitching, that way the magnetic snap is out of the way. So when you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure that you're only inserting it into the lining here, not the front part. So we're going to measure up 1 inch from the bottom. So here's the bottom. So we're going to measure up 1 inch and find the center, and that is the placement for your magnetic snap. I also have a couple other options here for closures. So here is the magnetic snap, and you would put in the female end of the magnetic snap here in the center, 1 inch up, or you could go ahead and use a twist lock or a turn lock. The names are interchangeable, and I'm going to be using it on this particular bag right here. So I'll be inserting this 1 inch up, and this is the closure that's going to be on this side of the bag right here, which we'll do later. So we're going to put it on here. And then the other option, which I would personally like to use this particular option, I think it looks really flattering on this bag, is this also known as a twist lock or a turn lock here. But I don't have a gold one, so I can't do it on this particular bag because it won't match. But this is the part that you would go ahead and place on your raw edge. There are some screws here that you would screw it into place. And then just like the other turn lock or twist lock, there is the twisting portion right here. And that would be put into here. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and find my center and go ahead and measure up 1 inch and cut the hole for my twist lock right here and insert that, and I'll be right back as soon as I've got that finished, and I'll show it to you. Okay, there is my one side of my twist lock installed. This is what it's going to look like once I get the other one installed. That's how the bag's going to go ahead and close. So we will install this portion later on. Now I've also gone ahead and ironed on my Sew Fuse Plus to the back of my front exterior piece. Set that aside for later. Now it's time to go ahead and grab your exterior back piece. It should already have the Sew Fuse Plus or your Decovil Light ironed onto the back of it, or if you're using foam, you can also do that. And I have one of my zipper overlays. I've applied some double-sided tape to the back edge. We need to now measure down 1 1/2 inches from the top straight edge here to find our placement for our zipper overlay. I'm also going to use a pen, and we want to also find our centers on our piece. I'll fold it in half, and I clip my edges here. I'm going to do that for the bottom because we're going to need to do that later anyways. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead now, that's the 1 1/2 inch mark. I'm going to place the top edge of my zipper overlay right against that line. I want to make sure that my zipper overlay is centered. So this one, I'm going to just go ahead and do a little marking on the back side here. Just kind of fold it in half and look, just so I can get it lined up right. So I made a little mark. Take off my tape. I should say, take off the backing of the tape. And then I have my little marking here to help me to identify the center. So I'm just going to match that up. Alright, I've got my zipper overlay positioned 1 1/2 inches down and centered on my exterior back panel. It's time to now go ahead and stitch at a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the outer edge only of the overlay. We're not going to do the inner edge yet, just the outer edge. We also want to make sure that our tails on our upper thread and our bobbin thread are about 5 to 6 inches long or longer, because we're going to use those in a moment to tie off our threads. We don't want to back stitch on this because it doesn't look as neat and polished. We're just going to start to sew and come back to wherever we've started, and we're going to flip it over to the back and pull our threads through. So I'll show you how to do that. I usually like to start around the bottom edge. And take your time getting your stitching nice and even. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and pull our threads out so that we again have another long tail. And you can see here we have our 2 thread tails right here, and then we have our 2 long thread tails here. What I'm going to do is get my seam ripper so I can help me to pull these to the back. So what you want to do is kind of tug on your bobbin thread, and you'll get the little loop here. I just gently pull that up, and I do that with both of those threads. Right now that I have my threads pulled through, what I want to do is tie them off together. So I get the one set of threads, and I'm going to do about 3 to 4 knots in it. And then I'll do the same thing with the other. And then we're just going to cut those off. And there you can see that we don't have any of that back stitching anywhere, so it looks nice and clean and finished. The next thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and cut out this center section right here. All right? So I'm going to get my cutting mat. And I'm going to use a blade real quick just to kind of cut down the center. And then you use your scissors to go ahead and cut. Want to make sure you're not cutting the zipper overlay at all. And once we have it kind of opened up, what we do is we're going to flip it over and start working from the back to go ahead and cut just that back portion up to pretty close to the threads, but essentially we want to go ahead and hide it behind the front piece here of the overlay. Just don't cut your overlay. And you don't have to make it look nice and neat because it's not going to be seen. Kind of using my fingers to keep the overlay separate from the back part that I'm cutting. So here's the back, and now you can see the front. It's nice and clean. We have our opening for our zipper that we're going to place in a moment. Now go ahead and grab one of your zipper pocket lining pieces and your 10-inch zipper or zipper tape. My zipper's a 12-inch zipper that I'm working on. We'll go ahead and trim that once we get it into place. You want to lay your zipper right side up on top of your zipper lining right side up. So it's going to look just like this. And you want your zipper tail to the right. We're going to go ahead and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the top edge of this zipper tape. All right. Once you do that, you're going to want to go ahead and take this bottom edge, and we're going to kind of rotate this and get it turned where the zipper pull is to the left now. Again, it's going to be the right side up, matching right side up of the zipper pull, making sure that we match our raw edges here on both ends so that it's all lined up appropriately. Alright, so this is what it's going to look like. So there's essentially a tube. The right side of the fabric's in the middle. Okay, got our zipper pull on the left. I can completely see my zipper here. And you can see the seam the stitching that we did a moment ago. Now we're going to go ahead and sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the other side. Alright, so this is what our pocket's going to be. So when you look down in, that's what your pocket's going to be. Okay. Now we're going to get our exterior back piece, and we're going to go ahead and get this centered and lined up just like this in the zipper window. I'm going to get some additional double-sided tape, and I'm going to apply the double-sided tape down both sides of the zipper tape here. I'll be right back, and I'll be getting this centered right here into the window, so it's going to look like this in the back. And then we'll go ahead and stitch it. Alright, I've got that lined up. Now I'm just going to go ahead and sew at a 1/8 inch seam allowance along just this top edge of the zipper window. Again, making sure my thread tails are kept long so I can pull them through to the back. And I'm going to get my zipper pulled over through the window, so I don't forget to do that. Alright, I'm going to pull this out so my threads are long. So this is what it's looking like so far in the back. So now I'm going to pull my threads to the back. Just tug on that bobbin thread a little bit. And then use your seam ripper just to kind of grab a loop and pull it through, pull it up, and tie it off a few times with a knot. And drop your seam ripper on the floor. There we go. Now we want to sew the bottom edge here. So I'm going to remove the lining here to my double-sided tape, the backing. And the most important thing is, now that we've done that, we need to flip our pocket upwards. Because if I go ahead and sew this bottom line with this down, it's gonna sew the pocket shut. So we need to flip this up out of the way. And make sure that you got it all flat so that you're not catching any little bits here on the edge. And we're going to go ahead now and sew the bottom edge at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Pulling my zipper out of the way, the zipper pull. Don't backstitch. Make sure your threads are long. And so you can see now that I did not close my zipper pocket up there since I flipped it out of the way. pull my threads to the back. Okay, so here we have our front piece. Now you can go ahead and stitch down the sides if you'd like. I don't usually do it because I can never seem to get everything to line up perfectly. I just leave it like that. I think it looks fine. Now it's time to go ahead and trim off our extra zipper tape. And I want to go ahead and sew down the left and the right sides of the pocket to close those up right here. So I'm going to sew at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance down the sides. And the way I do that is I lay it face up and I flip my exterior out of the way while I go ahead and sew down the side here. And you can go back now to back stitching. And there is our zipper pocket all closed up right there. So our front and back exterior is now finished, as well as our pocket flap. And I'm going to go ahead and base stitch this top closed. Let's now go ahead and install the other portion of our turn lock or our magnetic snap onto the exterior front piece. What you'll want to do is you're going to find your center by clipping right here and finding your center. And then measure down 2 7/8 of an inch and make a marking here. And use your washer from either your magnetic snap or your turn lock where you've made your 2 7/8 inch mark. Place it right here. And then use the openings in the washer to identify where the prongs are going to go, which I've already done. Probably can't see it on camera, but it's basically right here on the bird's face. Then what you want to do is go ahead with your seam ripper or a blade such as this from my Cricut and cut the openings. I'm going to use my seam ripper. And then insert the prongs. You could certainly go ahead and use some fray check if you'd like on the slits. And then insert your washer right there. You can go ahead and add an additional layer of interfacing underneath your washer and also on top of your washer if you'd like. Alright, I have gone ahead and added a piece of foam interfacing here behind my washer and prongs because I couldn't get a very nice tight fit here in the front. So that goes and fills in that gap for me. Then I wanted to go ahead and add some duct tape here just to protect the lining from those prongs so it doesn't wear through over time. And so there's that. So when we go ahead and take our flap onto our bag right here, we essentially are going to have about a 2.5 inch overhang here. And that's basically so that we can account for the width of the gusset because it lays over like this. So if you are doing your own hardware and it's different than a magnetic snap or the turn lock, perhaps you're doing the other turn lock at the base here of the flap, that's going to be lower. So you just basically want to line this up so that it's about a 2.5 inch overhang. Alright, so that's coming up along beautifully. The seams here are lining up nicely. I'm happy with that. I also went ahead off camera and added some rivets to both sides of my overlay. So I've done that already. Alright, now it's time to get your decorative strap anchor piece. Draw a line down the center and apply double-sided tape to both the left and the right side of the line that you've drawn if you're using vinyl. Otherwise, you don't need to do the double-sided tape if you're working with cotton. I'm going to remove the tape backing on one of the sides. And I'm going to begin by folding in the raw edge to meet the center line, just like we did with our strap. And I'm going to put some clips in there. I'm going to do this for both the left and the right side. And when I get back, I will show you the next step. But this is what we're going to do the whole entire way down the decorative strap anchor. Alright, I have gone ahead and clipped all of my decorative strap anchor raw edges in towards the center. What I want to do now is I want to measure 4 inches in from the end. And I'm going to make a line. I've made just a small line here to indicate that there's a 4-inch mark right here. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Okay. And what I want to do now is I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to sew with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance down the left and the right side here. And I'm going to stop when I get to this 4-inch mark. I'm not going to backstitch here because I want to pull my threads to the back side and tie them off just as we did on the strap overlay. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to the machine and do that top stitching right now, and I'll come back to show you the next step. Alright, I have gone ahead and sewn down both of the ends of my decorative strap anchor to the 4-inch mark. I have pulled my threads to the back. So I'm going to set this aside for a moment. We want to now work on our exterior gusset piece and give it some shaping. I have already shaped the 2 sides here. And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take your gusset, measure in 1 inch from both sides and make a mark. Then you're going to measure down 9 inches, make a little marking on both of these, and then connect the dots with a line. And this is the line you're going to go ahead and cut with your rotary cutter to give the gusset some shaping. So I'll do that now. Okay, there we have it. Our gusset now is shaped with the this portion being narrower and at the widest here in the center. I have also made notches to find my center because I will need that in the next few steps here. Just fold it over and clip little notches. My Sew Fuse Plus has also been tapered. I've done that. The same exact process, 1 inch in and 9 inches down, and cut that triangle out. Also find your center of the stabilizer. I'm going to now take this over to the iron. Center my stabilizer over my gusset and iron that into place. I'm also going to take some Dunnellon Heavy here, and I found my centers on this. I'm also going to line this up and center it on my gusset and press that down as well. Once I've gotten all that done, I will come back and show you the next steps. Alright, now I have my stabilizer and Dunnellon Heavy ironed on to my gusset. I've also located the center of my gusset by drawing a line right down the center. May not be able to see that on camera. And what we need to do now is we're going to go ahead and place our strap anchor right down the center of our gusset. And to do that, we're going to use some double-sided tape to secure that on. So I'm going to run some double-sided tape down the center here, except for the first 4 inches. I'm going to leave that first 4 inches without tape. As well as the last 4 inches. Okay, there we have it. Remove the tape. All right, now I need to take the center of my strap anchor, which I've already marked off here. I simply just went ahead and folded it in half and found the center. I'm going to line that up with the center of the gusset. Okay, now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I am going to go ahead and pick up where I left off with my stitching here. Not back stitching, because I'm going to go ahead and pull the threads to the back. Go down with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and stop where my stitching was right here, and repeat for the other side. I'll come back in a moment and show you the finished product, and we'll begin by adding our rivets. Alright, I have got that sewn on now. I went ahead and left my thread tails after I pulled them through and tied them off. I went ahead and left them a couple of inches long, and then went ahead and used some duct tape just as a backup, since it is a little bit of a stress point here, to keep my thread tails secured. So I did that on both sides here. I've also gone ahead and started marking out where my rivets are going to go on here. What I've done is I've taken my ruler and I've measured down 9 inches from this edge right here, and the placement of my first rivet is going to be at the 9-inch mark right here. So if you can see here on camera, 9 inches from here to here. The next place that I'm going to place my rivet is 1 1/4 inch up, another 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and so on and so forth, until you have a total of 7 rivets. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right. Do the same for the other side. Measure down 9 inches from this piece, and then you're going to make your 9-inch rivet. Then 1 1/4 inch from there, 1 1/4 inch, and so on and so forth. You can see here, if you've done this appropriately, you're going to have your tail loose here, and that is so that you can feed on your strap end hardware here. So I'm doing the rectangle ring. You could do the O-ring or the D-ring. And I'm going to go ahead and feed that through right now, and flip this behind itself. And what you want to do is you want to get the hardware, the decorative strap anchor to kind of butt up to where you finished sewing. And your rivet is going to go in right here. So that way it's going to secure the 2 pieces here. And you're going to do the same for the other end. So feed your hardware through here, and then flip it back on itself, and you're going to put your rivets in. So I'm going to go ahead now and put in my rivets, and I will come back in a moment to show you what it looks like. All right, I am setting my rivets now. I always like to put the exterior side down, because I have a less chance of downing my rivets when I do that, I found. I think it's also important not to over apply pressure on your rivet press, because that, I think, is why we tend to smush our rivets. So you only need a little click, kind of, is what you feel when you're pushing down, in order to set the rivets. And they look good. I didn't have any dents. So let's do the other side. That last rivet there, you want to make sure you're tugging your strap hardware out of the way so you're not clamping down on that, because it is very close. Okay, so our exterior gusset is almost finished. All we need to do now is add our purse feet if we are using purse feet. So I'm going to grab my purse feet, 4 of them. And I'm doing the ones with the screws instead of the prongs. I want to measure over 2 inches from the last rivet. So let me get my pen. And I'm basically taking the center of the last rivet here and measuring over 2 inches. And I gotta just do a little bit of a mark on the outer edges here. And repeat for the other side. And then we want to go 1.5 inches in from the edge. So I'm going to go with that little mark that I just created and go up 1.5 inches and make a mark. Alright, and stepping back and making sure it looks okay. This one I think is a little off. Let me double check my measurement here. Oh, the other one's off. Alright, so I've got my 4 placements. So 2 inches in and 1.5 inches in from that way. Now I'm going to go ahead and punch my holes for the purse feet. I just want to double check this. That doesn't look right. Do this again. Alright, I'm setting my rivets now. I always like to put the exterior side down, because I have a less chance of downing my rivets when I do that, I found. I think it's also important not to over apply pressure on your rivet press, because that I think is why we tend to smush our rivets. So you only need a little click, kind of, is what you feel when you're pushing down in order to set the rivets. And they look good. I didn't have any dents. So let's do the other side. That last rivet there, you want to make sure you're tugging your strap hardware out of the way so you're not clamping down on that, because it is very close. Okay, so our exterior gusset is almost finished. Alright, now I have already gone ahead and measured in for my purse feet, 2 inches in from the center of the last rivet and 1 1/2 inches in from the outer edge. You're going to do the same for all sides. So 2 inches in, 1 1/2 inches in from the outer edge. And do the same thing for the other side. So I've already got my holes placed. Okay, then just screw them on. Right. Okay, so our exterior gusset is now all prepped and ready to attach to our front and our back exterior panels. One thing that I need to do before I attach everything together is I need to go ahead and do right sides together, the flap with the exterior back centered here. I'm going to clip this into place and base stitch this on. So I'll take this over to the sewing machine now and sew that on, and then I'll come back and show you how to clip the gusset to the exterior panels. Alright, I have gone ahead and base stitched the flap to the back exterior. We're going to get our gusset right sides together, match the bottom center with the center of the gusset, clip it into place. Once I clip the bottom straight edge, then I go ahead and work on the sides. So I'll flip this around to meet the top. And I'm going to hold off on the corners for just a moment. Do the other side. Alright, now to work on the curves here. What you want to do is on your gusset piece here, we're going to clip about 15 to 20 notches all around the gusset. This is going to help it lay flat against the exterior back panel. Alright, do that for the other side as well. And clip this into place. Could also put staples within the seam allowance to help hold it in place, but I don't think these curves really need it. They're not as sharp as a curve as my martini crossover pattern. So pinning it into place, it seems to be sufficient. So you can see here with the notches, it's gone around that corner very nicely. Now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all along the outside edge right here. And now we're going to take the exterior front and match up the gusset just like we did a moment ago. So I'll go ahead and get that all pinned into place, and I'll be right back to sew it. Alright, I have gone ahead and pinned on my front exterior to the gusset. So we'll go ahead now and sew this around with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alright, and now we're going to turn it right side out and take a look at what it looks like. Just kind of rolling out those seams. Here is our little preview of what it's going to look like. It's really cute. Just got to kind of work with the seams a little bit better and get them pulled out. So there we have it. So we are going to move on now to working on our lining. Now it's time to place our lining zipper pocket in. grab one of your lining panels, your zipper overlay, your zipper pocket piece, and your 10-inch zipper. Just like we did with the exterior back of the bag, we're going to go ahead and do the same exact method to insert the zipper pocket into the lining. If you are doing the zipper facing method, go ahead and check out the Kensley tote video where I've done the instructions. It's at, I think, the 33-minute mark where I begin showing you how to do that. And you're going to place that zipper facing 1.5 inches down from the top center, just like the overlay. I'll go ahead and get this sewn in now, and I'll come back to show you the finished pocket, and then we'll continue on with the divider zipper pocket. Alright, I have completed my lining zipper pocket. I have also gone ahead and opened up the bottom of the pocket. I basically went ahead and just laid this down on my cutting mat and cut a little sliver off of here. I folded up my ends here, and then I went ahead and sewed down both the left and the right side of the pocket to close those up. And the reason that we're leaving this open is once we turn the bag right side out, we're going to turn it right side out through the lining. And then we're going to take that lining and grab it and pull it through the zipper pocket, close up the lining, stuff it back in, and then we can go ahead and pull our zipper pocket out and close this up. I'd rather have a seam through the pocket here than in the base of the bag and the lining. That's why I've done it that way. Now, if you prefer to keep your pocket all in one, you're fine with just closing up your lining in the bag itself. You can certainly do that as well. So this is now completed. We want to go ahead and start prepping our gussets, which I've already done. So I want to show you what I've done here. So in the pattern, it is written that the gusset is all one long piece here. So what I have done is, just like the exterior lining, I have measured in 1 inch and 9 inches down, cut off that triangular wedge on both the left and the right side of the lining gusset, as well as the other end as well. Once I did that, I went ahead and divided the gusset in half. So I have 2 pieces here. I'm going to set these aside for a moment, and we'll work with those in a moment. I have also gone ahead and prepped my zipper ends right here. So you've got your piece. What you're doing is you're going to go ahead and fold it in half, meeting the short edges, press it with an iron, open it back up, and then fold those raw edges in towards that center line that you just pressed, just like this. All right, and then you fold that in half. And you do that for both pieces. Next, we need our 12-inch zipper that you're going to go ahead and make sure you have it trimmed down to 11 inches. Let me grab my scissors. I always like to use a not so good pair of scissors when I'm cutting zipper tape. And you want to measure that out to be 11 inches exactly. So I'm just going to cut off the metal stopper here, mine. I'm going to make a mark first, so I got to get my zipper pulled. Pull your zipper down, and then cut that. Now we take our zipper ends and place them over top of each of the raw ends of the zipper. And this one we're just going to kind of put it together. You can certainly go ahead and base stitch this if you want closed. I'm just going to do it like this. Alright. Now there will be a slight overhang. Just want to get that trimmed up equal with the zipper tape. And I wanted to mention with the other lining panel, you can certainly go ahead and add some slip pockets here if you'd like to have on that side. So you can go ahead and do that now if you want. Now it's time to go ahead and grab our divider zipper pocket pieces. So we have 4 of those. Let's begin with the divider zipper pocket that does not have the stabilizer on it. Take your zipper centered on the divider zipper pocket, and we're going to go ahead and pin that into place. And we're going to go ahead and sew down the side here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you're going to grab your other divider zipper pocket piece that has the stabilizer on it. Lay this right sides together on top, sandwiching the zipper. Clip it into place. I'm going to pull my zipper pull down so that's out of the way when I begin sewing. And sew again at a 1/4 inch seam allowance down the straight edge. Alright, there's 1/2 of our zipper pocket. Now we're going to do the same for the other side. Alright, I've gone ahead and pressed that with an iron. Now I'm going to top stitch along the left and the right side at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, you want to take your zipper pocket lining and line everything up by folding it here in half. Your zipper is going to be on the outside here. And we're going to clip it into place a couple of spots and base stitch this closed. Okay, there is our zipper pocket lining. I should say our divider zipper pocket, right there. Now it's time to go ahead and put that inside of our gusset. So we got to take those 2 gusset pieces that we previously prepared, grab one of them and set the other one to the side. And what I want to do is find the center of my gusset. And I'm finding the center of both the straight side as well as the one with the wedge that's cut out of it, the tapered side. I'll do that with the other one. Now this is important. You want to make sure that you are working with this straight edge, not the tapered edge. So this straight edge right here is the one that we want to go ahead and match up with the bottom center of our gusset right here. So you want to match that up and pin it into place. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue pinning, and I'm going to have to clip my curves as well. And you can see here that it is longer, and that's the way it is supposed to be, so that it's going to be longer here. So obviously we're only going to go ahead and sew up to where the fabric ends here. So I'm going to start clipping here my curves. Now we're going to go ahead and sew this on at a 1/4 inch seam allowance all along the edge. Alright, this first side is now done. Now we're going to repeat this for the other side. So you want to make sure that you're again working with the straight side, not the taper side. So take that straight side, line up the center, clip it into place, and this time we're going to go ahead and sew all the way meeting to the top right here. So I'm going to get that done right now, and I'll come back once I've sewn this on. Alright, I am in the middle of sewing this on. I wanted to mention that this side we are sewing with a 3/8 inch seam allowance instead of a 1/4 inch like we did the first time. Another thing that's important whenever you're working with this is gotta every once in a while look underneath and make sure that this other piece is laying flat as you're sewing around, especially your curves. So I like to just lift it up and kind of tug at it and get it to go flat the best that I can so we don't have the puckering. Alright, now I've got that sewn together. So here is the one side of our divider pocket and here's the other side. When I'm working with this now and putting it into the bag itself, I want to make sure my zipper pull here is to the left. I am going to start with my zipper pocket panel here. This is going to be the back of my bag. So I want to work with this right side up. And I'm going to have, again, my zipper pull to the left, match my center bottoms, and clip these into place. And I'm going to go around and clip just like I did with the exterior of the bag, clipping my curves as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance for the first 2 inches. And then I'm going to begin tapering my seam allowance and increasing it to 5/8 of an inch. So I'll start at 3/8 of an inch and then go in slowly to 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to come around and I'm going to stop right after I have gotten around to the curve here. I'm going to leave this whole entire straight edge open because this is where I'm going to turn the bag. We want to make sure that that opening is on the side of the zipper pocket. So the opening where we're going to be turning is on this side that matches up with the zipper pocket. And then I'm going to pick up with my stitching again at 5/8 of an inch here when it just before it starts to curve, and slowly decrease my seam allowance back to 3/8 of an inch up here. This is going to allow the lining to fit snugger inside of the exterior of the bag. So let me go ahead and get that going, and I'll be back to show you what it looks like when I'm done. Alright, I have sewed one side of the lining. You can see my large opening there, so that we can go ahead and turn the bag in a moment once we put it all together. So now it's just a matter of attaching the other lining panel, just as we did the last one. I'm sewing that again at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance along the top 2 inches here, increasing it to 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. For this side, you can go ahead and completely close up the base of the bag. And as you're rounding the corner, you're going to slowly go ahead and decrease your seam allowance back to 3/8 of an inch up here. So let me do that, and I'll come back and we'll finish up this bag. Alright, I've sewn the other side. So this is the lining right here with the divider zipper pocket in the center. We're going to grab our exterior now, and we are going to insert it inside of the lining. We want to insert it in the side that we left the opening here. It's going to be a little tight with the divider pocket, but you'll be able to get it in there. So I'm going to insert it into this side. I'm going to match up all of my side seams right here when I pin it into place. So I'm going to get all of this pinned into place, and I'll come back to top stitch it with you. Alright, I have everything pinned into place, or clipped into place, should I say. Now I'm going to begin by top stitching. I usually like to start on the back side seam here. I'm going to sew with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance around the entire portion of the bag. And what I've done here is I've raised my machine just by using this case that I have. This allows me to get around the bag much easier. It's kind of my new way of top stitching. So that's what I like to do. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And so I stand and do this since I'm kind of short, so I don't need to sit and do it. And take your time going around, especially during the around this back portion with the pocket flap, because it can be rather thick. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and finger press all of these edges and kind of clip them down, and I'll go ahead and top stitch. So I will be back after I'm done top stitching, which is basically the same thing that you just saw, except for it's on the outside of the bag. So I'll be right back. Alright, I've set my rivets. I very carefully pressed the cotton fabric here, making sure to use a pressing cloth over the edges of the vinyl. And I also pressed this. And now what you need to do is we need to go in there and close up this lining. Open up your zipper pocket and pull the lining out through the zipper pocket. Then you push that back inside. And we're going to close up our zipper pocket. Push that down inside. Alright, and there we have our Charlotte shoulder bag. Alright guys, here she is, all finished. So pretty. I'm keeping this one. Kind of keep all my bags though. I love them all. There is the back of the bag. So I'm so excited at how she came out. I can't wait to see your bag. Make sure you stop by the Facebook group to go ahead and post pictures. If you have any questions along the way, go ahead and stop by there. We have a great community of bag makers that are willing to help. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.